Dear friends, probably for some of you or most of you which are electricians, it is very easy to understand the ring circuit concept. I found people which don't understand the ring circuit concept. Some people believe they have two circuits connected to a circuit breaker, and they disconnected one circuit because they were considering that it's a unknown circuit. So I will emphasize the fact that anytime you'll have a ring circuit, you'll have two terminals, and on the live, neutral and earth. So you have a cable which goes in a circle. One cable goes through all the sockets, and then you return to the circuit breaker, to the neutral bus bar, and to the earth bus bar. In case you have a 32 amp circuit breaker, if you will break the circuit to any socket or to any point, you have to replace the circuit breaker to change the 32 amp circuit breaker with a 16 amp circuit breaker. So you have to apply a derated factor, and you have to protect the wires, otherwise your installation might catch fire. Now let's talk about the economical issue. When you want a quote from an electrician or from a company, you have to be very careful, not only about the price you pay, but what you get for the price you pay. In this situation, you'll observe the client choose to use only one residual current device for the entire of his home. This is not illegal, but if you'll imagine that residual current device will evaluate the entire earth leak for the entire home. So once you'll reach a value of 30 milliamps, that residual current device will be triggered and will trip, and it will cut the power for the entire home, the power supply for the entire home, which will be pretty inconvenient for you. So imagine if you use only one RCD, the RCD will provide power to the bus bar, and onto that bus bar you'll put circuit breaker. Each circuit breaker will have the capability to protect each individual circuit for an overload. So the circuit breaker, it is not a residual current device. Many people are confused when the residual current device trips. They said my circuit breaker tripped, the big one. Everybody tell me it's the big circuit breaker. That it is an RCD, a residual current device, which protect you against the fire and any other electrical hazards. You will just see on this picture, like you turn on the RCD and the entire bus bar underneath the circuit breaker becomes live. However, the circuits are not live because the circuit breakers are off. So until you will activate the circuit breaker, your circuit, your allocated circuit, whatever it is, a ring circuit, light circuit, garage doors, whatever, they will be off. And obviously after you will enable the RCD and the bus bar will be live, one by one you will turn on these circuit breakers, and all your circuits from your home will become live. If you remember a couple of seconds ago, I told you an RCD, it is the cheaper option, but it's not the best for the home. Look, all this home have the power supply and the lights enabled, but if the RCD will trip, then the entire of your home will be plunged in darkness, and you also lose the sockets. What you do in this case, you will turn all the circuit breakers off, and you'll start investigating what circuit is faulty. If you are not an electrician and you don't want to pay too much money for an emergency service, you have to lift your residual current device, so you will see the bus bar now receive power, bus bar which provide power to all the circuit breakers. And now you have to turn off one by one each circuit breaker to reinstate the power supply to your home. In this case, the shower has been enabled, Now the ground floor's ring circuit has been enabled. Now the first floor ring circuit has been enabled. So you have to turn them one by one until the RCD will trip. When you'll find the faulty circuit and you will enable the circuit breaker, instantly the RCD will trip, or in a couple of minutes if it's some humidity problems, but that's a little bit more complicated. So look, slowly I'm reinstating the entire home. I got the ring circuits and also I got the lights. I got everything running. But here's the problem. When I try to reinstate the floodlight outside, there's an earth leak. Moisture or water because of rain could go inside. In this case, the residual current device will trip and all my home will be plunged into the darkness. If the installation has been correctly done, then it will be easy for you to investigate the fault. But at the moment you identified the faulty circuit, you know the floodlight circuits have a problem. As long as you don't have other circuits borrowed from that circuit, you are sure that the floodlight have a problem. In that case, I will just turn off from the circuit breaker the floodlight circuit. I will put a padlock. The reason why I put a padlock is if you don't lock that circuit, someone might try to reactivate it, and again he will leave the home without power supply. For home it's okay, but for the commercial environment it's not very good. Now you can reinstate the residual current device and all the home, with the exception of the faulty floodlight or faulty floodlight circuit, have a healthy power supply. So you actually fix an emergency call. You will fix the fault later. Now this is something I personally got through. After 35 years experience on electrics, I figure out things faster, but for some people this could be a nightmare. I turned to one of my customers' home and I mapped its electrical circuit, but I was into the end. I found this kind of arrangement, ring circuit with triple spur in spur, floodlights, all connected to a ring circuit, which is not in line with wiring regulation. And I opened the distribution board and I had a look. I had a look into this arrangement, and I observed that yes, indeed, I had the ring circuit because two wires was going into this 32 amps circuit breaker, two wires into the neutral and two wires into the light. So I presume there's a ring circuit. But with many problems I meet in my life, I don't trust. So I had to investigate it. We both know that when you turn to people's homes, what you will see. You will see a wall with a lot of sockets. You wouldn't have a clue how these sockets are wired until you will open these sockets. And if you presume that the sockets are correctly wired, the circuit is correctly wired, then you might have a headache. Anyway, so I pulled out the distribution board lid and I looked inside. I saw, like you see in this picture, two earth, two neutral and two light that went straight into this circuit breaker, 32 amps, which clearly showed me that was a ring circuit. I turned off the circuit breaker. Probably everybody does the same thing. You don't want to get an electrical shock. And then I use a padlock and I secure it. The reason why is I don't want someone to, by mistake, to turn on the circuit breaker so I can have some nasty surprises. Then I disconnect the wires and I measure the wires. I make sure I pull out from the sockets all the appliances. But the problem is I opened another socket and wow, I couldn't believe I had 5 cables into that socket. Then I say, oh my god, this is a junction box. And then I have to open the rest of the sockets and sound the wire to see each where to go. I have to configure somehow the circuit in my mind. And towards the end I found the fault. It was in a wall somewhere. I didn't fix it. I just eliminate that section which was faulty, and I explained to the customer he's got an incorrect circuit and he can catch fire. This type of circuit is not something that you want to have at home. That's a fire danger. You protect a 2.5 cable with 32 amps, and if it's not ring circuit and it is unprotected spur, then you might end up in trouble. Now if you look to this scenario, I put a padlock onto this faulty circuit and I reinstate the rest of the circuit breakers, and I turn on the RCD. So with the exception of the floodlight, which was faulty and it was triggering like an earth leak, all the home power supply has been left in a good condition. Hi guys, we talk about ring circuits. As you'll see in this picture, see the earth, the neutral and the live are just split in two by the white line in the middle. This is just to show you, when you use a ring circuit, you'll see two pair of wires going into this circuit breakers, into the neutral and to the earth. I know some of you will say it's easy and it's pointless for me to say this, but believe me or not, I found technicians which couldn't explain to themselves why two wires. They thought they are two circuits in one circuit breaker. So if you're not sure what to do, just ask an electrician, call an electrician. But if you're not qualified or either competent, I suggest that you're not open a distribution board, because we die only once. I wouldn't take a chance. So I also talk about the not really bad but inconvenient for a maintenance standpoint to use only one residual current device. If you use one residual current device, then you'll see clearly in this picture that the residual current device will provide power to the entire bus bar, which provide power to all these circuit breakers. So if you have an overloaded circuit, it's okay. Each individual circuit will break. But if you have an earth leak, then the situation change. The RCD will trip and the entire bus bar will be without power, so you lose the power supply for your entire home. If you look into this picture, exactly as I said before, you see on the bus bar we fix these circuit breakers, and we will choose the appropriate circuit breaker for each circuit. Probably if you work into the electrical industry, you know the circuit breaker, it is at the origin, and it is there to protect the electrical circuit and not the appliance. You have to choose the appropriate circuit breaker to protect the electrical wire. If you have a ring circuit of 2.5, you will use a 32 amps, but if you break that ring circuit, you have to downgrade the protective device at 16 amps. Now, a reasonable better solution it is to use two RCDs. If you use two residual current devices, like in this case, one of my customer said, I want one residual current device for lights and one residual current device for my socket, whenever they ring circuits or not. And I did this. I explained to my customer I would rather go with RCBOs, but he preferred this way. He said he can handle this. So I built a circuit, I fitted two residual current devices, and then obviously I put the circuit breakers. I allocate each circuit breaker according to the circuit requirements, so the electrical wire inside the walls will be protected against fire in case if they overloaded. And I use 30 milliamps circuit breakers, 18 amps each, because that was the customer requirement. Us, arrangement only, because the customer cannot dictate to you how to make its circuit safe. You can only want an arrangement if you want to save money or not. But as I said, if you use only one RCD, the maintenance become a kind of nightmare. Now imagine you have a home, and like I said in the last video, you come very tired from work, and under some reason it is a very heavy rain outside, and we have a big variation in temperature, and the floodlight, even if it's IP65, is still sweating inside, and if the water are touching open electrical wire, will create a kind of earth leak or short circuit. So the RCD under this condition will trip. So see, if you look on the right hand side on top, the floodlight, because of the moisture outside, start to have an earth leak. If we'd use one RCD, the entire of your home will be in not only in darkness, but you'll also lose the sockets, your fridge. In this case, the RCD, which protects the light circuits, tripped because I have an earth leak. Fortunately, I won't lose my food in a fridge. My computer will not be disconnected if I'll do something very important, or maybe I'm watching something I like on TV. I won't be annoyed by the fact that the entire power supply in my home failed, and I can use some light that I can plug in my socket. How can I investigate this? If I'm not an electrician, without opening the distribution board, I will turn all the circuit breakers off. Once I'll turn all the circuit breaker off, I hope, if there is not an earth leak between neutral and earth, because that will change the situation, I explained it into the last video, then I eliminate somehow the fault. And then I will turn on the circuit breaker. If the circuit breaker is not tripping, I will use the test button. I press that test button, I check the RCD if it is okay, and then I will prepare myself to turn on one by one all the circuit breakers to find the faulty circuit. So in this case, I turned off the lights on the ground floor, and I do a little bit inspection. I'm waiting for a while to see if that circuit will trigger the residual current device. By doing this very fast and be satisfied with the fact that you didn't have an instant trip of the residual current device, it is not a good idea, because that circuit might have a delay or something in triggering the fault. Then I will enable the second circuit breaker, and I'll reinstate the lights onto this first floor. And again, I'm not going to reinstate instantly the third circuit breaker. I will wait for a while. Maybe there are drops of water, maybe humidity, maybe something will happen. Just 10 to 15 minutes, it's okay. If you want to save money, otherwise we'll call an electrician, we'll do the proper test, and you'll pay £1 million, you'll be happy. Then again, you reinstate the third one, and then you reinstate the entire of your home, with the exception of the floodlight. So let's say all the rest of the equipment works, and you will reach the last circuit breaker. You just turn on the last circuit breaker and you realize that your residual current device just tripped. Now you lost the light, so you understood that if you will activate the last circuit breaker, which is the floodlight, your RCD is tripping. So what do you have to do? You have to turn off that circuit breaker and to put a padlock on it to make sure no one will activate it, if you don't have time to repair the circuit, of course. And then after you secure that specific circuit, you will reinstate the residual current device. And so if you'll get a call in the middle of the night or sometime for someone that have problems, to my perspective, you've been in an emergency job, you make it safe, you reinstate as much as you could, and you finish your job. You give him a quote for the job to be done. Sometimes life is weird. I work on a floodlight alleged circuit, and I figure out that there have been multiple circuits. The client complained. I repaired this floodlight, but I saw a lot of circuits. I didn't know what are they and where they're going, and I have to run through its entire home and to see what circuits are interrupted when I turn off the floodlight circuit breaker. And exactly like you see in the picture, this is the truth. The burglar alarm, one light in a hallway, an indoor and outdoor socket back to back has been connected to this floodlight, and I have a 16 amp circuit breaker. And I think the outdoor socket developed an earth leak. I disconnect that circuit and I reinstate the floodlight and the alarms. But then the customer complained. He said I did a bad job but I told him all the auxiliary circuits which are connected to the floodlights and are not marked, he have to pay me so I can map his electrical circuits in his home. It is not possible to be asked to repair in 5 minutes something that I don't even where it is physically fitted, where it exists. So thank you guys watching this video. I hope you find some informative stuff here, and in the next video I will explain to you how can people be killed by a borough neutral. Thank you. Goodbye.